It's the 26th of June 2019, and after a long break, I'm catching up with Clairvoyant Dale Jackson.
Hello Dale, it's been quite a while since we met, and you're back in the Barbican for a while, aren't you?
Yes, hi Chris, nice to see you. I've been back in this little unit since February, but I'm not staying. I'm leaving at the end of July, but I have been doing the readings, the card readings and the tarot, and people are finding me back again now after I was ill last year. But I live on the Barbican, and I wanted to give people my mobile phone number because I'm leaving here.
Before you give your mobile number, why are you leaving?
Really because I'm retiring. I officially kind of retiring. Yeah. I don't want to maintain a premises.
Because your husband's retired now as well?
That's right, we're both retired, but we're living on the Barbican, and if people do want to have a reading, if they ring me, I can take them at home.
Yeah.
But my number, because I can never remember it, so those who want to take my number, get your pen and paper ready now. And my mobile is 0796 937 2787. So that's 0976 937 2387.
And also it's the dalejacksonway at virginmedia.com.
Yes, my email address, thedalejacksonway at virginmedia.com.
So how long have you been a clairvoyant?
Oh wow, well I'm 73 now, so I should say going back to my well really my late teens. I started to do palmistry and cards at school, really. It was, you know, you do it if you're interested. And back in those days, I mean, 50 years ago, there wasn't a lot of information around, and we didn't have the internet, and there weren't many books around. And I found a book, a housekeeping book. A kind of Victorian thing, and in the back of it there were a few pages about palmistry and a bit of astrology, and I was at school, and it was a girls' boarding school, and so I got this book and sneaked upstairs with it to the dormitory and found these chapters on palmistry and astrology and got interested, and used to kind of fool around with my friends, looking at their palms and talking about birthdays and astrology. I just got interested in it. But I did find with that interest that what I was reading about astrology and the characteristics of the zodiac according to your birthdays, there was something in it. There was a system in it. You could, once you knew your elements, air, fire, earth and water, once you got that sorted out with the birthdays, there was a system that was like a truth, how earth works with water, how fire works with air, those elements, and you can work personalities out and compatibilities and so on. So I got interested really through something I'd read in a book about astrology, and then in those days there wasn't very much around and people didn't talk about it. It was all very occult and all very mysterious and all very dark, and no one should know about it. But of course here we are now with the internet and everything else, and you can get as much information as you want from anywhere, and everybody's doing it.
So where did you start doing it professionally?
Well, charging money.
Yeah.
I think, well, I used to do readings from home when I lived in Yorkshire, and I think going back probably, my 20s onwards, and I've lived in different parts of the world, and you can set yourself up anywhere, 2 chairs and a table and a deck of cards.
Yeah.
And you can have yourself an income because you're charging for your time. People say, you shouldn't charge for things that have any spirituality to do with it. You should do it free. But you've got to pay. You've got a cost of living to cover.
Yeah.
And time. So the reading in that sense is the free part of it. But everyone's entitled to cover the costs of living, really. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, so where was the first place you started working professionally?
Oh, wow. To have a premises to do it from, I'd have to think about that one, Chris. Probably, well, I did it from home everywhere where I moved about the world. I've done it from home mainly. And used to give talks and lectures and talks to groups, clubs and societies, women's groups and so on.
Yeah.
Probably about astrology or about the cards or something. And I did graphology, which was the analysis of personalities from handwriting. So that was always a good talk to groups, the Mothers Union or the Ladies Circle or whatever, or even men's groups. The Masons, for instance, they've had me as a guest speaker and at dinners and things like that. So I covered a big range of areas really and people, but you could get to a crowd, you see. I could get to 20 or 30 people by doing these little talks to groups.
Yeah.
And then people got to know me all around everywhere, and in Yorkshire particularly, where I come from. And then I got onto an after dinner speakers list, which was national. And most of the speakers on the list for after dinner speaking were men, people that were well known. Nobody had heard of me in those days. But I was on this list in a little agency book that people could refer to, and I started getting gigs where I was the after dinner speaker.
Yeah.
And then from that I would get private appointments. People would come to my home, or I'd go to theirs, or people would have a party of half a dozen or more people for an evening's entertainment. But I went all over Britain really, all over England anyway, doing talks on a lecture circuit. Leatherhead I went to from Yorkshire, and the east and west coasts, all sorts of places, all over the place. And you know, I just built up, I suppose, a reputation through that really.
Yeah.
And then we got onto your VTs, and then I got some international recognition. Yeah. Which was great.
From Hawaii was the first one.
Yeah, the Bahamas, first one. Once we put those VTs out, was 3-4 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing, really, the response that came. And but I'm not doing the system like I did it then.
What made you get into the Crowley Deck?
It was given to me. They say with tarot reading and these sort of things, you don't purchase the deck that you use.
Yeah.
It should come to you. It should find you. And as it happened, when I was in Yorkshire, a photographer actually, someone quite like yourself, even in looks, I have to say.
Yeah. Maybe I got a clone.
Yes, he came. He was in a group of friends that I knew, and he said to me, "Dale, I've got this deck of cards someone's given me, but it's the Crowley deck and it's supposed to be very dark." And he said, "I can't. It's frightening. I can't use it. It throws all the darkness back up at you."
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's what he'd been told. So there's a certain amount of auto-suggestion in that one. Anyway, I said, "Well, I'll have a look." So he brought the cards along to my house, and I spread them all over the floor, the whole deck, and sat down on the floor, and I spread all these cards out, the higher arcana and the lower arcana, and I just thought it was so magical. It was like I had an orchestra in front of me. You know, I could pick up the brass band or the flutes, or the energies were just all over the place from the pictures, from the colours and the vibrations in the pictures, and it was magical. But he said, "You can have it, you can have the deck. I can't use it. It's Aleister Crowley and it's very dark." But I had no notion of Crowley and what he meant and what he was all about. I had no knowledge or information regarding his history, and it was about 4 or 5 years later that I saw a book somewhere that was the explanation book for the deck of cards that I had. So I bought the book. It was impossible to understand. It was just outrageous, really. It was impossible to understand, and it was very arcane and very kind of specific language to describe these cards, and it was very hard work, and I thought, well, I'll do my own interpretation. I'll look at it through what I understand in terms of elements, fire, earth, water, air. How does that work? And where are the symbols to indicate air? Wings, for instance, for air, and coins for earth. And how does that work? I thought, and I'd looked at it like that and put my own idea of elements, what they looked like, what was the physical, what was the imaginary, and then the people cards, the jacks, the queens, the princesses, and so on. They would describe people and certain age points. You get a young woman, or you get an emperor or a king, and so I got age points with people, and then with the elements you would get their birth sign or the area of their birthday, and then you could expand on that in terms of characteristics if you knew a bit about astrology. So I just put it all together like that, really. So it was my interpretation. And when I was about 20, maybe, there was a time in my life, well, no, it was after I got married, and my husband then, he was working overseas. We didn't see a lot of him, and a lot of his income at the time was held overseas, so there wasn't much money coming into England for me to kind of pay the bills and things like that. So I got my cards out and started charging for tarot card readings at that point, because I just did not have a cash flow. And so that's where it all stems from, really. It was a need for cash, for money. Everything else was taken care of. But on a personal level, I hadn't my own money, basically.
Yeah.
And
It's not.
it is a case of, well, in this case, I sold my soul and not my body.
Yeah.
Is what I always say to people. No, it was something that you could charge for a card reading, and I got such good feedback. I thought, well, I can do this. I'm getting the right sort of feedback, and people would tell other people, and that's how you get your reputation, really. But that's really, if I'm honest, that's how it started.
So the chappie that set up, I've forgotten his name for the time being. What's his name?
Sorry?
The guy who set up the Crowley Deck.
The Crowley Deck. Well, Alistair Crowley. I mean, it was given to me by a photographer. I can't remember his name now.
So I mean, I was looking for the name again because I forgot for a minute. But he had quite a reputation, didn't he, across the board in the Lake District?
Yeah. Oh gosh, it was. I've forgotten his name. We used to call him the Silver Fox. He had lovely silver hair, a bit like your style.
Yeah.
And he had kind of strong features, very good looking man. And he was part of our crowd, I suppose, in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
There was a group of us friends.
Yeah.
And he gave me these cards. He said, I can't, the Crowley Deck, I can't use them. It throws the darkness back at you.
Yeah.
But you see, my interpretation is, well, you've got to see the darkness to see the light.
Yeah.
You've got to have your yin and yang. You've got to have your white and your black and white.
Yeah.
To know where your boundaries are, and I mean, such a lot of things thrive in the dark. For instance, there's a nocturnal world, a world of dark creatures and things that happen in the dark only, that are very good because that's their environment that they live in, that they're in harmony with.
Yeah.
So you've got to have that.
So you were in Brighton for how many years?
I went to Brighton 1994.
Yeah.
And I was there till 98.
Yeah.
On the Gypsy Caravan on Brighton Pier.
Yeah, it's still there.
It's still there. I've just been a fortnight ago down to Brighton to see my son, and the caravan is still there on the pier. Back in the day, in 1994, it was all painted like the proper Gypsy caravans with the roses, and it had the green bow top, and the lovely kind of folk art that goes with that culture. But now on the pier sad to say, it's all painted out, just dark green, and they've painted all that culture out of it.
Yeah.
And even on the fairground too, on the pier, it's not like fairground painting anymore.
Very neutral.
It's all kind of a bit corporate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, I did Brighton Pier, and that was another desperate move, a point in my life where I got divorced, I hadn't a lot going on, I had a mortgage to pay, I was behind with the mortgage, and someone said, Dale, there's a pitch on Brighton Pier. And this was in Yorkshire. I was in Yorkshire, and some people had been to a talk I'd done, and then they'd gone back to various parts of Britain because it was a holiday centre. I was doing the talk in, and people were from all over England and Britain, and they'd gone back home, and I got 3 calls within a fortnight telling me about this pitch on Brighton Pier with a gypsy caravan that was to rent. It was to let. Crying out for you, Dale, it's crying out for you. And that was so extraordinary because I was living in Yorkshire and had nothing to do with the south coast at all. So I grabbed a bag and a friend who had a car, and we drove down to Brighton, and I had £50, I remember at the time. Mm-hmm. All I had in the world. That was the petrol money to get back home.
Yeah.
And I went to see the man on the pier, and I said, I'm interested in the caravan for rent. He said, oh, it's £200 a week. So I said, all right, here's 50 quid.
Yeah, start.
I'll try it for a couple of days and then I'll let you know.
Yeah.
If I'm going to hire. It was absolute desperation at the time.
Yeah.
And yes, it went very, very well that first day, and I got my £200.
Yeah.
And went back to the office and said, I'll take the pitch.
Nice one, tremendous. That's a nice story.
So that's how I started in Brighton.
And you met all the celebrities there as well? Naomi Campbell and people like that? The day?
Yes, all sorts of people, different groups at the time come down the pier, and I did 1 or 2 famous people and actors and actresses that were either all in London or even Brighton Theatre Royal. It's difficult for me to remember names really, but really that was the source of what you might call celebrity.
So what brought you to Plymouth?
What brought me to Plymouth? Good question. I had a punter in the caravan who came in Brighton. This guy came in the caravan for a reading, tall, dark, handsome stranger. And when he'd left and I'd done the reading, I thought, that man's my future.
Yeah.
I didn't tell him that. I thought he'll come back in a couple of days, and sure enough he came back. And he said, I thought I'd ask you out for a drink. I said, I don't drink. I'm teetotal. But anyway, we went for a cup of tea, and he became my husband, my future husband. And then Malcolm. And then he got work. He was an architect, and he got work further up from Brighton. To this end of the coast anyway, the Plymouth area, and we kind of came here together. We went to Ireland first, Southern Ireland. He got work in Southern Ireland. I told him he'd leave Britain to work, and no, he said, he was 50 then. He said, I'm not going anywhere now outside England.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got a job in Southern Ireland, and I said, that's the one. And I said, I'll come with you. So we went together to Ireland, and got married there a year later, and came back to this part of the world. Well, came back to Cornwall and sort of worked our way to Plymouth. And then I think this unit came up, and I said, right, I'll get my cards and I'll get the unit.
In the house that Jack built? In
the house that Jack built, this little unit.
Barbican in Plymouth, yeah.
Barbican in Plymouth, with lots of these little artisan shops around. And so I took this unit on, and I think that was 9 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I had a year off last year when I was ill.
Yeah.
And I had cancer, and came through all that and got my unit back.
And it's my walk around in the Barbican constantly that I met up with you.
Yeah.
First time.
I think you came in, yes. I had a unit at the back actually, and I think you used to walk around looking, with your camera or whatever.
Always looking for somebody to record.
And we got talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how we met originally, in the house that Jack built.
Yeah.
but I felt lucky to have got this back.
This will be your second retirement, won't it?
Yes, I'm always retiring.
Yeah.
I go through phases of retiring, and then I think, well, and people sort of stop me in the street and say, oh, you're not doing your cards anymore, or you're not doing this, or you're not doing that. And I always feel, oh, I'm being called back to, I have to do a bit more.
So still doing your flower arrangements?
Well, I haven't done flower talks or flower arrangements for quite a long time now, because I used to be a florist.
Yeah.
But I did this one in the corner. They're artificial flowers, but it's just a decoration for the shop. But I had a wonderful career in floristry.
Yeah.
And I still want to carry on filming.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Okay, because I had this gig back in the 80s or early 90s. And I got booked for a talk, a weekend with the Queen's Gardener Percy Thrower, who was on children's television, Blue Peter.
Yeah.
And he was the Queen's Gardener, and he was famous at the time for radio programmes on gardening and things. And I got to do a talk with him, and it was about flowers and flower arranging, because at that time I was a florist, had a flower shop, and at this big event that we had to do, this garden event that we were doing one weekend in Southport, which is a big flower centre. You know, people go to big flower shows in Southport, like Harrogate in the north of England, and he was there for the weekend, and I was his demonstrator at national level, and my brief was to do flowers for the home and flowers for special occasions. And I thought, that's a bit boring in Southport. I'll do flowers for the home according to the signs of the zodiac. So I did the flower arrangements and put in the astrology as well, so that it got a bit of interest for people on a personal level. And for instance, Aquarius, people like flowers for the Aquarian home, for instance. I thought, well, Aquarius is an air sign, it's the water bearer, but it's an air sign. And I thought, right, well, I'll do the home will be a windmill for the air, as something quirky, and Aquarians are usually quite quirky people and unusual. And so I did flowers for the home of an Aquarian, the home being a windmill, and the arrangement I did was an ikebana arrangement, which is Japanese flower arranging, which I have a certificate for, which I did in the Far East. And I bent dry broom round in swirls, as if the wind was blowing through these branches.
Yeah.
And that was in a Japanese compote. Like a cup like that, and these swirly branches, and some little yellow spiky chrysanthemums, and that was kind of an unusual kind of an arrangement for this unusual home, which was this windmill for Aquarius, which is the sign of the zodiac, which is unusual. People are quirky or unusual. So I kind of applied the astrology to the sun signs and my flowers and put it all together.
What about your painting and your artwork?
Well, I haven't done a lot of it. I'm intending...
I'm just looking around to see if we can find any paintings.
No, I took it home. Yes, I took it home. There is a picture I've done in the doggy shop, Anne's shop. Yeah. On the other side, Keith has a picture of mine with a dog's portrait, which is I did in pastels. Yeah. He's got it in there somewhere. But my intention, good intentions, is when I leave here at the end of July, is maybe do more of the portraits with pastels. I prefer to work in pastels and do animals and pet dogs' faces and things, cats and dogs. I can do those quite well, although I say so myself. But the medium of pastels is very soft and looks like, the coat and fur of an animal. So I've got a technique for that, and it seems to work all right.
Well done. It's been great doing the videos with you over the years, and it's nice to see you back and healthy again.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to do them again. My problem is which where do I channel my energy? Because I have all these interests and I am a creative
and you're very
person.
talented at all of them.
It's, you know, creative energies. I just have to kind of try and focus.
Yeah.
And choose an area of expression that I can kind of focus on. Otherwise, I'm too scattered.
Yeah, and give my regards to Malcolm. And have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to Dale Jackson. You can catch up with Dale at the dalejacksonway at virginmedia.com. Telephone number 0796 9372 387. So that's 0796 9372 387. Music with great thanks by John, the Parade of Souls. This has been a Chris Summerfield video 2019. You can contact me at ccsPhoto1@gmail.com. And if you can help to sponsor my videos, you can PayPal me at ccsPhoto1@gmail.com. Thanks for watching the videos. It's a